So welcome everyone. Welcome to today's podcast. Now today I'm going to be talking to this amazing woman who unfortunately at a age of 19, she actually walked in finding her mother who's passed away. So you can understand the traumas that people go through. And sometimes we don't realize that we hold those traumas for such a long time. So 20 years later, the tears from the trauma were still just under the surface, and found a simple technique that helped her release these emotions. But she went further and she can now put awareness inside her body. Now, I did get to see a snippet of some x-rays. Now, when we talk about healing from the body, from the physical side, let me tell you, this is exactly what we talk about. She was what she calls insight or inward sight, and has found that seeking out the truth will truly feel, and accepting these feelings is the key to inner peace. So having said all of this, I now want to introduce you to Hince, I believe is her surname. Please correct me if I've said it incorrectly.
Hi, yes, it's Hince. It rhymes with mince.
Oh, Hince. Oh, there you go. See, I didn't even think of that. There's my English for you. So welcome, Anne. Welcome to today's podcast. Like I said, we talk about, of course, we're not talking about yourself going through breast cancer, but I've always talked about traumas, holding traumas, guys, or holding emotions, holding diseases, anger, frustration, all of these emotions can cause trauma in the body. So share your story with us, and I'll take it away.
Sure. Yeah, so I was in my late 30s when I actually went to a doctor's appointment. I was a stay-at-home mother with 2 young boys at that point, so I shouldn't have had a lot of tension inside of me. But my doctor realized I was actually more tense than I should be, and he asked me on a scale of 0 through 10 what my anxiety level was, and it was an 8. And I knew straight away it was from that trauma 20 years earlier. I was still holding it inside, and those tears were just so close to the surface. If I thought about my mother's death, the tears would come. So at that point, he used a simple technique with me. It's called EFT, short for Emotional Freedom Technique. He used it for about 15 minutes, and I walked away from that doctor's appointment being able to tell the story of her death without the emotions coming up. So I knew it was a real shift, and that was the real inkling that I had, that we store this tension inside of us, these emotions inside of us, inside our physical bodies, and we can let it go. So that was great. And then I went home and I thought, I'm an engineer at heart. I was a software engineer. So I like to try things out. So I actually wanted to test it. So I had a 17-year-old cat at the time that needed daily saline shots. And the first shot that I gave him, my hand was just shaking so much that there was no way I was going to be able to do it on a daily basis. So I thought, well, I'll try out this technique. So I learned it. I tapped it. It's tapping on the ends of meridian points as you're talking through how you're feeling or events that happen. So I tapped through the memories I had about injections. I tapped through the fear of hurting my cat, and the fear of injections, the needles themselves. And the next time, the needle just slid right in. And it was totally different from the first experience. So something had shifted. So I knew at that point, I knew how powerful it was. So I started doing it on a daily basis whenever I'd noticed myself being emotional about something. And then I actually wrote down all the memories that I could remember that had emotions attached to them. So emotional memories or traumas. And I went through them one each night with this tapping technique. And I found my mind becoming quiet. And it was at that point that I realized that the words that I had been using in my mind to criticize myself or to judge other people, which I hated doing, those words were ones that were my dad's. I had been programmed, or I had programmed myself. I had been programmed by them in childhood, and I just replayed them over and over again in my mind. And it wasn't until they had gone that I could look and say, oh, that's what it was. But I had to get to that place beyond first in order to look back.
That's it. It's quite well. Just that alone is so powerful because words are powerful. They. I know that whole cliche or that rhyme years ago was "sticks and stones may break my bones, but words would never hurt me." Well, words can hurt you because words are just what, like you said, whether you hear something that doesn't resonate with you, or someone says something, or you say something, you will always remember those words, and that puts a hook inside of you. And it traumatizes you because every time you think of that moment, because you can talk to anyone and you go, oh yeah, I remember hearing that word when I was 5 years old, and this is what I was doing, da 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 da, da. And it's like, wow, you're still hooked onto that. So it's interesting how you say that. Now, I myself have also heard of EFT, doing some events and things like that, courses and events where we'd have some people. I also know of a young lady who does that as well with her clients because, like you said, finding the way to do it while you're going through a trauma is so good because whatever it takes, find that path that helps you get through whatever you're going through. And like you said, I mean, you touched on, you were 19 when you found your mother who's passed away in the bathroom and things like that, and that moment would have just been just embedded into your mind. It would have been imprinted that no matter what you did, no matter what you said, every time you close your eyes or you turn to something, you would have seen it, you would have smelt it, you would have heard it, you would have felt it, everything. And that's what trauma is. It's not the event as such, it's what gets connected to it, what emotions you connect to that.
Right. And what
So
I found with being able to get deeper and deeper inside, what I found is it's not just stored in the mind, it's actually stored in the body, physically in the body. And that's what EFT does great to begin with, because you're actually tapping on the physical body. You're actually letting the charge, the emotional charge, pass through and be gone from the body. So I love your wording. I use hooks as well. I use the phrases like, yeah, words can certainly hook you because the whole memory around a particular word is stored inside of you. We don't realize that whenever we're using words, the memory or all our memories around that particular word actually come into the picture, even though we're not consciously aware of them. So they are so powerful. One of the most interesting things that I did when I really got used to this tapping process is I actually tapped on the word love for 15 minutes, put my timer on, tapped on the word love. And all the memories that I had around that word surfaced into my mind. They kind of let go and surfaced into my mind. And they were nothing like what you think of as the word love. We think it's all positive stuff, but it was actually all the stuff around my mother mostly that actually came to my mind. And it wasn't positive. So when I use that word love or used to use it or think about it, what would actually come into my being at that point were those subconscious memories around the word love. So that's part of the signal that I was putting off when I thought of that word. So yeah, very powerful.
Yeah, because like you said, because as a child, we hold on to everything that we've said, seen, and felt. So and like you said, if you were to tap with love, like myself, if you said to me, Grace, let's use this technique on love now. Yeah, love is now me. I love me first and foremost. It took me almost 50 years, but I love me first. But of course, you feel that emotion attached to that word love, like, well, oh, did I get that love I wanted as a child? Did I see that love? Did I feel that love? Was there love all around me? And it can bring up some things that you haven't dealt with, and it is quite interesting because, like you say, every word, happiness. So what's happiness? Oh, that's a happy word. But when you tap deep inside, are you really looking at happiness, or was that just a shiny word to help you through, but there was no happiness in your life? There was no happy times or whatever it may be. things like that. And I always do say that, it's words, I did a technique. I'm going to forget what name it is now, but I did a 14-day of a silent meditation. It's an Indian technique. And what it does is it tells you to look at things and to let them go. And there was a lot of that words, what we attach to it, the smell we attach to it, the sound we attach to it, all of these things that can just trigger, that emotion. So finding techniques to get you through that, because guess what? I just read or just heard recently, life is going to suck, not in a bad way, but it's never going to be roses and pearls and fairy tales. So let's be real about it. You're going to have some great times, but you're not going to have some great times. And it's how you deal with that before it becomes worse. Now, for yourself, we're talking 20 years of you with such high levels of stress and anxiety that you felt. You were just, what impact do you think that would have done on your body physically?
Well, I know now, I mean, it stored a huge amount of tension inside of me. And I think of it through the law of attraction. I know most of us have heard of the law of attraction from different things in our life. I think of the law of attraction slightly differently, in that it's working all the time. Every second of every day, we are emitting a signal, and that whole of us is the signal. It's everything about us is part of that signal. And we're emitting that signal, and we're attracting back into the future based on that signal. So if I am feeling tense all the time, I'm going to attract back to me events in my life that are going to allow me to recreate that feeling of tension. I'm just going to stay in that same place of tension. So it takes a real shift to actually you have to want to change first. And I really wanted to change. So I realized I had to change the signal I was emitting right now. And to do that, something like EFT would do that. If I was feeling emotional in this moment, then I could tap and allow that tension, that emotion to dissipate. And then I'm emitting a different signal, and I'm going to get something different back. So that really helped me on my journey. I actually started asking myself throughout the day, so how am I feeling right now? And do I want to feel this way again in the future? And a lot of the times I didn't. So I would do something about it right then in the moment.
Yeah, and it's interesting, like you say that, because we talk about, especially with my listeners, we talk about women who have, I do always mention it's not just for women going through breast cancer, because what I'm trying to also do is advocate about, no, don't get there. I know there's certain environmental factors that can get you to get breast cancer. I'm not going to just say it's just all emotional. It could be environmental, it could be emotional, it could be anything. But if you take some of that in the equation, it might help you. And we did discuss this because we had a great chat just earlier on in the week. And like I said to you, was I surprised I had breast cancer? Yes. But was I surprised? No, I wasn't, because what it was not dealing, like you said, it wasn't dealing with the traumas. It wasn't dealing with what was happening in my life. And we look at it as, oh, I was just stressed or tension, oh, I was just tense. Oh, I'm just anxious. Oh, I'm just fearful. But it's not. That's the word we give it. But what is underneath? And yeah. And like we're saying, this thing attaches to itself. It's like, oh, she's not healing this. Let me attach this to this part of the body.
Right. So what I started to realize as I started to become more aware, right? When I started this, I had suppressed everything for decades. So I didn't even know how I felt. If someone asked me, how are you feeling, Anne? I wouldn't know what to answer. So the tapping on these traumas allowed that awareness of my emotions to arise. And as I did more and more work, underneath the emotions is a set of physical sensations, right? So if we're feeling fear, we probably perhaps we have tension in our jaw, we might have tension in our shoulders, we might have tension in our solar plexus. There's a collection of physical sensations that we then give the word fear to, right? We've actually been dissociated from those physical sensations, and this kind of reverses that process. We start to become aware of what those physical sensations are, and then we can work to accept them rather than the word fear. When we start tapping, I would tap on how afraid I am of this, that, or the other, whatever it is I'm afraid of, through the words. But once you get this deeper awareness, then you can tap on, oh, I can feel this fear in my solar plexus. I can feel it as tension in my solar plexus. And then you're focusing more directly on those physical sensations and allowing that, this is a slightly deeper level of tension that you're accessing, and you can let that go too.
Yeah, well, see, how you said that, to do the tapping technique to go within, like for someone who's like, if one of my listeners is going through breast cancer, she's still going through the treatments, whatever it may be. She's not sure. The thing is also too, because as a breast cancer survivor, every year I have to go and get checked. So this is going to follow me for the rest of my life. But what happens is, and it's crazy, right? Because now that I think about words associated, they call that every time a woman has to go back to get a scan every year, they call it scanxiety. And it's like, well, why can't, that's exactly why you're going to get there and be anxious, because you've labeled it already, scanxiety. You didn't label it, beautiful day or a miraculous moment or whatever you want to name it. You named it already a negative name. So when someone said to me, oh, that's you just suffering from scanxiety, I thought, oh, that sounds even more horrible. I feel even more bad, and I feel even more fearful. So someone who's going through that now, we spoke about the acceptance. So how do you go through and accept what you're going through?
Right. This is this work that's created these shifts inside my skull, right? These physical changes. They all started with totally accepting exactly what I'm feeling at whatever level I'm aware of. So it might be words. So I would tap just on the word scanxiety, right? To let the emotional charge around that word go, so that when I heard that word in the future, it wouldn't do anything inside of me. It would just be a word. It doesn't have any emotional attachment to it. And I would also then feel the fear. So what am I afraid of? Am I afraid of getting a bad scan? And am I afraid of the cancer being worse, of it being, whatever it is I'm actually afraid of? I would accept that I'm afraid of it, accept that fear. It's okay that I feel afraid. It's okay to feel afraid. We spent so much of our lives trying to suppress that, right? We're told not, think positively, right? Don't be afraid, think positively. But when you do that, you're suppressing the actual feeling that's inside. And it's way more powerful, in my experience, to accept the actual feeling and to let the emotion, let the tension around the feeling go, because underneath it, the positive will come up. It's there. It's inside of us. We just have to let the baggage go from on top of it.
That's so interesting, because we use the term as well that, allow yourself to feel it. Just don't unpack your luggage and stay there. So if you are feeling that emotion, feel it. Why am I feeling it? Understand it. Get to know it. I do a lot of events with Tony Robbins, and one of the things he says is, if you fight fear, it's going to keep pushing. Whereas if you dance with it, one of you are going to get tired after a while. And this is the same thing. If you keep, like you're saying, you get the techniques, you do all the techniques, and you associate that word, that it no longer has that trigger feeling. That's what it comes down to. Words trigger traumas. Right. Because with yourself now, there could be, God forbid, there could be an incident that is not even the same, but it's very similar to what you felt that moment when you found your mother who's passed away, and it just, oh, okay, we're there again. This is exactly what I'm going to go through. This is exactly and you start playing a play that no longer exists, because it didn't happen. Like, it's not going to happen the exact same way. Does that make sense when I say that? You know what I mean? But these are the triggers. Yeah.
Right. For me, it won't happen the same way because I've let it go. Right. But we do, we play these. That's what I was talking about. The signal we're putting out. When I was 19 and I saw her in the bathroom, I was emitting a signal that was full of fear and anxiety, and I was attracting those things back into my life. But if I released the emotion around it, release the charge, that's no longer part of my signal. So I'm not attracting that anymore. So if we can let the fears go, the fears around the whole of the experience of cancer, right? Even the word cancer has so much history inside all of us. If we can let that go so that we can say that word without that trigger inside of us, which is emitting a signal. Every time we're triggered, we're emitting that signal and we're attracting back to us based on that signal. So let's let the emotion go, the feeling go, the charge, the signal go, so that we're emitting a more peaceful signal. And then that's what attracting again in the future.
Yeah, because it's so true. These are things that resonate with me because I've gone through it, and I'm no expert. I'm still going to go through my emotions every time. Hey Grace, here's your appointment. But it's interesting how you said that, and I've just lost my train of thought. But it's more like you were just saying that trigger, because a lot of women too are like, I don't want to hear about cancer. I don't want to hear la 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 la. I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear. And you're suppressing that. You're suppressing it.
It's actually a part of your body. It's a part inside your body that you are not looking at. And when you're not looking at it, things can happen,
Boom.
right? The tension is in there. Yeah. So I kept going, right? I kept going once I became aware of the physical sensations inside of me. This is kind of when I went on to my next step. At that point, I didn't need EFT. I could use EFT, but I didn't. I was going to a class at the time, and the guy in the class said, you don't have to meditate, which sounded great to me because I didn't want to. He said, it's all about feeling your feelings. And I didn't know what he meant at the time. I was just starting with tapping. But as the weeks went by, and he said every single week, I thought, okay, I'm going to actually try and do that. What does it mean to feel your feelings, right? You even just said it recently. So what I would do is I was at the kitchen sink, and I would notice that I had thought a thought that had emotion attached to it. Right? I could feel myself reacting. So I would stop in that moment. I'd actually become like a statue. I'd hold my breath. I'd keep totally still and notice those physical sensations. So imagine it's tension in the solar plexus, which is where a lot of my tension is. So I would hold that feeling there, and I would do the same kind of as I'm doing with EFT on the outside. It's just focusing on it, keeping the awareness on it. And as I did so, I would sometimes talk to it. It's like, okay, I can feel your tension right there in my solar plexus. Okay, I want you to feel safe to express yourself because I've kept it suppressed for so long. So it took a while to allow this to happen. But once I did that for long enough, just held my awareness on it, my focus on it, I would find that I needed to take a deep breath, and I would take a deep breath, and then I would come back to the thought and the feeling, and I would notice it had shifted. It had let go a little bit, or maybe it had shifted somewhere else in my body. And then I would do the same thing again and again with the same thought until that thought no longer had emotion attached to it. And at that point, the thought is free. Then you're free from that trigger, from that hook inside. So I started doing this over and over and again. My mind became more quiet, became more peaceful, which was my goal. And then I started doing it on the sofa. I would do it at night. I would bring up more of the collective traumas like 9/11, the Lower Prieta earthquake, the tsunami, the big things. I mean, that's big emotion that we held inside of us, or I held inside of myself. Yeah. So I bring those emotions up into my body and just allow that tension to release. And it was at some point during this that then I could keep my awareness inside my body, which was really weird the first time it happened. But that was the next step.
Yeah, well, see, this is the thing, because let me ask you the question, because for our listeners to understand, because some of our listeners might think, okay, I'll just sit there and just start tapping away and things, it should go away and things should be hunky-dory. But how long did it really take you to really truly understand the techniques that you were using?
It took several years for sure.
Mm.
And because to begin with, I wasn't aware, right? I was not aware of what my true feeling was because we suppress it, right? We don't know, oh, am I really afraid? And what is it that I'm afraid of? And it's just a depth of awareness, just become more and more aware of what we need to tap on.
Yes, and let me ask you the question then too. You just sort of answered it, to be more aware of what we need to tap on, because you bring up about traumas in your life that you went through, and there's different things, and you think, okay, I wanted to fix this, I want to fix this. What I'm trying to say is, a lot of people go, okay, oh, all right, I want to fix the trauma that I had with my father, and then I want to fix the trauma that I had with my grandmother, and then this and that, and it could be overwhelming, and it could actually go pear-shaped. So how do you actually say to yourself, yeah, you know what I mean? It's like someone who goes, I want to heal everything. And you're like, oh, okay, you ready? Imagine a big fat machine healing your body all at once. Your eyes, your ears, your neck, your throat, your whatever, all at once. You'll be like, oh, this is too much, So when do you know that you've actually really dealt with that emotion, that trauma? Do you give yourself a couple of, like, a month or a week or more, just to sit through it, just to probably bring it up again to see if it's that emotion is still attached to it? What sort of technique do you do there?
Yeah, well, there's different layers to it, emotion, and different layers to trauma, right? Different emotions that will come up for a particular trauma. But I would generally go through one trauma a night. And when things have shifted, when you can talk about the trauma and it just sounds like you're reading from a book. There's no emotions left in the voice as you're talking about it, right? You don't want to cry. You don't want to, put tension in your voice as you're saying things. You're just calmly talking about something, right? Then something has shifted. So that's one of the ways. But one of the great things about EFT is it gives you feedback. When you're releasing things. A lot of people yawn as they're doing it. Some people burp. You end up taking deep sighs. When you take a deep sigh and relax, that you've let go of some tension inside. Some people get really, really tired and actually start to fall asleep. So there's different feedback that you get from tapping, which is really nice. So you actually that something's shifting. And one of the normal techniques is to ask yourself on a scale of 0 through 10, how big is this emotion right now, right? Is it 10? Is it overwhelming? Or is it 5, 6, 7, whatever? And you give it a number, and then you tap for a few minutes, and then you ask yourself again, and you just tap until it's a 0, 1, or 2, and then you've really released something. But when you look back at the trauma again the next day, something else might come up, another aspect of it. So with my mum's trauma, one of the small aspects that took a while to surface was that I was alone in the house. I didn't know where my brother was. He was at his girlfriend's house, and I didn't know who she was. So I managed to get him home, and he brought his girlfriend with him, who I'd never met. And she made me a cup of black coffee. And I didn't like coffee, but if I had it, it had to have sugar in and milk in. And I was annoyed with her. It seems so petty now, but at the time I was annoyed with her because it was disgusting. So that was something that didn't surface until I'd done a good deal of the letting go of the actual event of finding her.
Wow. So isn't it funny, because they're little things. That's what we talk about. It could be the big moment, but then it's it's made up of moments. It's made up of moments. You would probably, if I asked you, you would probably remember exactly where you were. You would probably remember exactly almost to the point, what you were wearing or what you were doing to that. You know what I mean? Those are the little moments that attach to that, and even the after effect, because you just said it nicely, in the sense, there's the trauma, but then it's the after effect that you go through as well. You know what I mean? So you're not only dealing with that, then you're dealing with, well, this person's annoying me, and things like, but you don't realize that that's a trigger. That's a reason why did it annoy me? What was it? And I believe, personally, this is my hallucination, that if you dug deeper, you might have found out what is she triggering in me right now? You know, what is she, it had nothing to do with her, but she was probably triggering something else that you had suppressed.
Right. Well, I was probably wanting my mother to make me a cup of coffee with milk and sugar
There
in,
you
right? And she
go.
wasn't there anymore. Yeah.
There
It's
you
really
go.
interesting how we hold on to traumas. My brother, who has passed now, but he
Mm.
held on to my mother's death. He wasn't even there in the house, but
Wow.
he told his wife that he had caught her when she died. That's
Oh,
what he lived with for decades
wow.
afterwards, which I think was due to his guilt. So, but it's totally different experiences that we lived with all those years, which is fascinating to me.
But see, I mean, we're not looking at your brother going, what a liar. We're looking at him is what helped him get through it. What helped him get through it. Like you said, you know, it was his guilt for not being there. He must have felt that guilt until the moment he passed himself, that he thought, I couldn't be there for my mother. And that's, again, something that, you know, you have to let go of, you know, like, you know, again, we talk about women who are going through this, and a lot of the women that go through breast cancer have children, they have partners and things like that. And then they feel guilty because mummy's sick, you know, and things like that. And, you know, I shouldn't be worried about myself. And that just creates a, like a story that you tell yourself, but you're not really saying, hey, no, I need to heal now. And it's okay. It's okay. This happened to me, or actually we say this happened for me. So let me look at it that way.
But I would
it's
also accept
interesting.
the guilt, right? So
Yeah,
I wouldn't go there with it's
absolutely.
like I feel guilty and tapping for those who aren't able to watch.
Yeah, yeah.
But I would tap on it's like I can feel this guilt inside of me, and I feel so guilty for taking all the attention away from my children or whatever it is,
There
right?
you go.
Totally accept the guilt, because once the guilt has disappeared, once it's gone from your system, then it's so
Mm.
much easier to say, okay, well, this is the way it's supposed to be, and let's get through it or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it's great how you, like when we touched on how do you know when you've gotten through it. And I use the term always about, you know, open wounds and scars, you know. So if I'm able to talk about my childhood trauma and my voice is still the same level and I'm not or starting to cry, whatever, if I did, it's not a problem. It just means it's still an open wound. I haven't dealt with it. Where when it's a scar, like you said, you can talk about it. It has no emotion attached because it's not that you suppressed it, it's because you dealt with it. There's a difference. There's a difference. Let me say that again because it just shook me to the core. You don't suppress it, you deal with it, you face it. Because if you think, well, I'll just turn, I don't want to know about it, I just turn it away, you know, you just sort of keep brushing it under the mat, it's going to come back and haunt you one day, you
Right.
know.
And
So
an open wound is a great term to use, a phrase to use for it, because, you know, so I went deeper, you know, when I became aware inside my body, I started to use that instead of the other techniques. I would just go inside, feel where the tension was, hold my awareness on it, just like I did in the other methods, but now I'm at a deeper level of awareness, hold my awareness on it, and it would release. But at each level, I'm totally accepting it and putting my awareness on it, holding my awareness on it, and letting it shift and release. And this point where I could actually get inside my head, I found so much tension in my left cheek, pain in my left cheek that I had no idea was there before. And it had been something that had been sitting inside of me for 40, 50 years that I was not aware of. And it took this deep level of awareness to be able to notice, to become aware that it was inside of me, almost like an open wound, that I then had to do the same thing, just accept, just allow and let it dissipate.
Wow. Now, I just want to touch on also because when I was reading your profile, you have pictures of your skull. So speak about that. You know, like we say that, you know, people don't realize that when you heal these emotions, it heals you physically, not just, you know, emotionally or psychologically. It can heal you physically as well. how can I say without sounding like I'm religious here, but God's spirit, whoever you believe, put us on this earth. And I don't think he said, we're going to put you on this earth, but you're going to have to rely on outside sources to heal yourself. You know, I know that there's Western medicine. I have nothing against that, but we're built to be able to heal ourselves as well. So you know, as I said, I saw the difference. So talk to people and let them know exactly what those X-rays represent. I'll definitely have the link of your bio and everything, you know, after of your website attached. But for now, just speak about what do they represent, those X-rays? Why did you make those X-rays? What was before and what was after?
Sure. Well, I was kind of lucky enough that I was having orthodontic treatment all these years, for over a decade. So 8 years ago, I had a skull X-ray taken from the side and from the front. And I had new ones taken again just recently, a few months ago. Just because it was time. And to see the difference, the side-by-side comparison, it blew me away because I knew I was releasing tension deep inside. I mean, I could feel the bones shift sometimes. Deep inside the connective tissue is what I believe all this tension is stored in at all the different levels, at the level of words, at the level of emotions, at the physical sensations, and then at the tension. I believe it's all physical. So all this work is releasing that tension on the inside. So my whole skull structure has changed. My eye sockets have aligned. My jaw was way off to the side and it's now more in the middle. My neck was very bent. I have scoliosis, and it's straightening. It's a lot straighter in the second video than it is in the second image and than it is in the first one. And even my tooth roots have grown. So these are changes I never knew were possible before. And just to do it with focused awareness, no physical manipulation of any sort. It was just amazing for me to see the changes and realize how incredibly powerful we are, how powerful this work is, you know, how much we can change if we really put our minds to it.
Absolutely. And that's what I mean. So the thing is, we are built to heal ourselves, you know. I'm not saying not to rely on outside sources. Sometimes we do need them and that's fine, but don't always give your power over completely. You know, do this work where you heal yourself, regardless what you're going through, you know, just do it, do this. It helps you because your awareness, once you become aware, once you've actually accepted everything, like you said, so much is, okay, we're going through this. It's just so much easier. Because we're not just talking about people going through cancer, of course, but, you know, what's happening around the world today. You know, there's so many people who were so structured. They knew their ins and outs, their ups and downs, and oh my God, all of a sudden I can't do what I used to do. And you know, that's giving away everything. And then you suppress it because you're angry at your politician or your state or whatever it may be, or your business or your office, because, you know, they've got mandates or whatever it is. And you suppress it and you suppress it. Guess what's going to happen? You don't deal with it. You haven't moved on. So therefore, God forbid this thing blows over in 10 years. You've wasted 10 years.
And you stored all that tension inside of you, right? And each time you're reacting or feeling emotional, you're putting off that signal and you're getting more back. So our power is in letting those emotions be felt, to flow through us, to be gone, right? Because imagine if you could see that politician that you don't like and not have a reaction, right? Just have it be peaceful, right? Then you're not emitting that signal and you're not attracting it back to you. So can you imagine if we all did that? It doesn't matter what side of anything we're on, right? It could be the vaccine, it could be for it, could be against it. You've got emotions either way, and you've got emotions about the other side. You've got emotions about the people who think differently from you. What if you let all those emotions go, let all that energy out of the body? At that point, I think we could all come together in peace. Because we wouldn't have the charges. Neither side on any issue would have a charge. And at that point, the universe doesn't need to bring that back to us. We can let it go.
Yeah, and I agree totally with that because it's so true because it's everything. I love the way that you go, it's that attraction. It's true. You know what I mean? It's true because, again, I'm going to quote my mentor Tony Robbins, but he says if you've always done what you've no, what I'm going to misquote him now, but if you've done what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always gotten. Something like that. Sorry, Tony. But you know what I mean? But it's like, well, hang on. Change the way you feel about things. Change the way you think about things. You can. You have that. God, Jesus, Spirit, whoever you believe in, the universe has given you the power to be able to change the things you can and accept the things you cannot. I'm sorry, I'm not religious here, but in the sense, does that make sense? When I hear those words, it's like, can I change the way I feel? Yes. Can I change the way the politician is running my state? No.
No,
So
but
why
you
am
can
I
change
holding
the
on
way
to
you
that?
feel about it, right?
Correct.
Right.
Because I can change the feeling. I can change the feeling. Yeah. Can I change him? No.
But once
So
you change the
accept it.
feeling, he might change. I had a group before COVID started and would meet weekly and do tapping. And I had a lady, it was her first time there. And then she tapped and she came back the next week and she said, well, does this work change other people? Because she had gone home after that first meeting and found a very different husband than the one she had left. And she felt like it had changed him, but she had only changed herself. She had changed her vibration, her signal, and then she attracted a different version of him. So that can happen on a collective level too, right? If we do the tapping around COVID, we do that tapping around climate change, right? Our fear of fires or floods or hurricanes or whatever, and we let all of that go. The universe has no need to provide it to us again because we have learned, we have experienced those feelings, we've let them go, and they're no longer a part of our signal.
And it's important, like you said, if you want to see the change in the world, start with yourself. So and that is so true because if you don't give that energy out there, it's got nothing to go back on. It's like, oh, she's not throwing this energy at me. Oh, now what? Now what do I do? But, power loves power. Like we said before, you keep pushing the enemy line. The enemy line keeps pushing back, regardless what it is in your life, regardless whether it's family, it's friends, it's whatever it is. If you keep pushing, it's just going to keep pushing and you're going to be playing this game. Whereas, like you said, if you allow it, you accept it, you look at it and let it go.
Right.
But
because if you're pushing back, if you're pushing against someone, right, you don't like something that they're saying or doing, there's actually a tension inside of you, right? You're actually holding yourself tense on the inside, not necessarily aware of it, but it's there. And that is then part of your signal. So you're going to attract it back again. You're going to attract that pushing back against it because it's part of your signal. But if you let it go, if you let that tension go, that pushing go, and you're sitting in peace, then you're not going to attract that pushing from the other side.
Let me ask you this question too. Like, say you're going through an emotion that you're feeling, but you feel like you need to vocalize, you need to use your throat chakra. Do you do that as well? Like, say there was a person that, there was a moment in your life that there was a trauma attached or an emotion, and you thought, you know what, I need to talk about this to that person. Is that something that you would also do as well?
You can do that with tapping. I wouldn't do it directly to the person to begin with. I would tap about the event myself, about my experience of the event. And then I do something that I call air tapping. So I imagine the person is in front of me, sitting on my lap or standing in front of me, and I actually tap on their points. It's hard to see, I should do it sideways. I tap on their points, right? Imagining they're there. And I tell them the whole thing. I tell them exactly what I want to say to them, like my truth. Maybe I've been saying these things over and over in my mind to them, but have never expressed it to them directly. I would say it to them as I'm tapping on their points and kind of get that energy outside of me. And once I've done that, then I'm sitting more at peace with them. I may no longer want to say anything to them directly. Or I might, but if I do say it to them, I'm going to say it from a much more peaceful place. And I'm going to attract something different from them than if I haven't expressed it through tapping or something else to begin with.
Wow. See, that is just that's perfect. Because a lot of people think, oh, I've got to tell that person. But if you come gun-ho, that person's going to put up their defense and you're getting nowhere. So it's beautifully said the way you said it. Now, I'm going to sit in the seat of one of my listeners or one of my viewers, and I'm going to go, well, she keeps talking about this EFT and these other techniques. Where do I go? Where do I start? How do I get involved? So tell our audience, how do you get involved in, I know we called one the EFT, but the other one is what you call the inside or inward sight. So please share, where can someone who's putting up their hand saying, okay, I want to try this technique, when can they start?
Sure. There are thousands of videos online about EFT. I would caution people, though, because the power in EFT is in addressing the negative. I know everyone thinks we need to be positive these days, but the positive's already in us. All we need to let go of is the negative. So many of the EFT videos and practitioners are moving more towards the positive. They're not really doing a lot of the work on the negative. So just watch that if you're finding them online. I do have a YouTube channel that has a demo EFT video and a demo feeling your feelings video, which is the second technique that I used. So you can go on there and check those out. And yeah, I think that was it. That was a question, right?
Yeah. No, that's perfect, because, that's what I was going to say to you, because the thing is, I want people to come and see your video because you're living the experience of it. You're doing it. You know what I mean? So like you said, there are videos out there showing how to do the technique. But if you really want to get to learn more about these techniques, tap into some, I know I should I use the word tap in, but but just reach out to someone like Anne, and I'm sure Anne will be, really interested in finding out how she can assist you further. Because I always say to people, go to someone who's been through there, someone who's doing it, because they're the people that have lived it. Because I can create a video, you can create a video, but if we're taking it out of a context book, it's not the same than someone actually, having years of experience like yourself. You've been doing this for years. So I also have your website up here on our podcast. So share with us what's on the Anne Hince podcast. Sorry, website. Not podcast, website.
Okay, there's quite a few things there. I did write a book that was my whole journey. I've talked about my whole journey, how I believe the law of attraction works, how we get programmed in childhood, and then the different steps that I took all the way through to where I am now, and ideas on how you could do the steps if someone else wanted to do this work. So I recommend that if you're into reading books. Otherwise, the videos on YouTube are pretty good too. And I love interacting with people on my public Facebook page. If anyone's got any questions, that's the place to go. Just ask them in one of my posts there.
Yeah, absolutely. And your book, the name of your book for everyone?
It's called A Pathway to Insight.
Okay. What I'll do is I'll also put the link to that. Is that found on Amazon?
It is. In fact, I published it on 11/11/2020.
Congratulations. Thank you. So it's a book in the making. I'm sure it's going to be amazing. It's going to help a lot of people as well. Was there anything else you wanted to speak about or you wanted to share with us?
I would just encourage everyone to start becoming aware of how you feel during the day. Ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? And can I change that? So if you know how to tap, then you could tap, but you could also just relax, because then you're putting off a different signal and life will change.
Yeah, that's so good. Just start with the simple things, Don't try and change the world, 180 degrees. Good luck with that. Or yourself for that matter. We talk about 2 millimeter shifts, small little millimeter shifts to change yourself. So I've actually really, really enjoyed this because, as I said, I have, when I was doing one of the events and there was this gentleman showing us how to tap, you get into it, but you don't get into it because I was too busy listening to what he was saying that I wasn't listening to what I was saying. Does that make sense? So, like you're saying, in time, yeah, of course, you got to look at someone else doing it. You want to be able to do the tapping technique or the insight technique, the inward sight technique properly. Because if you don't, now with the inward sight, let me ask you, because you call it the insight, and you how did you do that? Is that also a technique people can learn, or is that your own technique that you
Well,
created?
the feeling the feelings is what I call the second technique, where I was actually
Mm-hmm.
putting awareness on those physical sensations. And once I got inside, I actually do not know anyone else who can do this at this point. Hopefully there are other people who can do it, but you actually have to do the other work before you can get inside and
Yeah.
actually do the inward sight work.
Yeah, but that's okay. Like you said, which is great for our listeners and our viewers. Please reach out to Anne if you have any questions. Want to know more about the techniques or how to, better heal yourself. Make sure you reach out, send her a message. I know Anne will be more than happy to answer whatever questions you might have. So, having said all of this, I've really enjoyed this. I love the tapping technique. I'm going to probably start looking into that a little bit more because for me personally, you talking about the tapping technique, I can resonate with a lot of places where I think I need to do something like that because, like I said, I'm learning. I don't sit here saying, okay, well, I'm a breast cancer survivor and don't worry about anything else. Oh no, I'm 50 years old. I still have whatever life I have, so I ain't going to blow it over and start getting sick again. So I guess I want to do some more work on myself. But having said this, Anne, it was a privilege to have you. I will actually purchase your book as soon as I'm off, and I'll send you a message and I'll show you that I've purchased it because I love reading books on the people that I interview. I don't just say it, I really do. I have a bookshelf behind me of books. You probably can't see them, but there's books of people that I've actually interviewed because I want to support what you have out there, but I also want to understand from a deeper level yourself, you know what I mean? Because we could chat about this for an hour, but you really get to understand a person when you start reading the books that they write. So thank you again. Is there anything else you want to share with us or say before we go?
Just remember how powerful you can be.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's been great.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, Anne. And for everyone else, thanks for tuning in. And like always, I wish you so much love and light.